How do we analyze this data to have some inferences on the Bharatiya civilization? So for that, people have proposed many models. And one of the models is the linguistics model, where they try to take the different sounds, how sounds are formed, and try to make a relationship between different languages to try and understand who are the different people in related languages. That's a linguistic model. Then we can have the archaeology model, where people can dig up the material artifacts from some layer in the soil and try to make an inference about the people who lived there and the kind of life they had. Or we can have the genetics model, where I can take a look at all the mutations that I carry and try to see where did I get those mutations from, where were the ancestors from, and try to trace a record of where they came from. Or you can have an astronomy model where a whole lot of data in our text, the Brahmanas, Aranyakas, Upanishads, Itihasas, they've all got a whole lot of astronomical information, and we can use that. So a good model should explain the context multidimensionally and should be used to predict, to fill the gaps. That is what we would like a model to be. So we should understand that there are different sources of data. Source 1, source 2, so many different sources of data like I showed you in the previous slide. And we cannot use the data directly, right? Because we don't know where the data came from. Or it might be noisy data, or there might be some issues with the data. So we have to do some analysis. And typically in engineering, you do some filtering, processing, interpretation. Make sure you can use that data for what you want to do. Once you have done that, then you have your model. Your model could be the linguistics model, a semantic model, a logical model, a mathematical model, like a genetics, whatever. So you use some methodology over there. Once you do that, you're going to get some results, which we call inferences. You're going to make some inferences from the model's behavior with the data based on the frameworks that you're applying. These are the drishti that you bring to the situation. What are you looking at in the Bharatiya civilization? And you can make some decisions based on that. So that is what we want to do. So we have to do some critical thinking over here. So first question, is all data equally valid? We know that some data is of pretty high quality, some data is of medium quality, some data is of low quality. We need to understand that. Then we have to ask, is the data reliable? Then the provenance of the data, where did it come from? Sometimes it might come from an unreliable source. Maybe it's a forgery, or maybe it was found somewhere else, does not belong to that epoch in the chronology. Then we have to consider what kind of processing can I do on this noisy data before I use that. So we have to apply logic and do things very, very carefully. Then even in the methods, we have to do some critical thinking. We have some assumptions in data analysis. We have to articulate those assumptions and say, does it make sense when I'm going to derive something of the Bharatiya civilization? How appropriate are the algorithms I'm using for analysis? If I'm using some semantic algorithms, if I'm using some genetic algorithms, mathematical algorithms, is it suitable or not? I have to say that. Modeling assumptions. Sometimes people assume so many things in the model that it's not at all a real life scenario. So we've got to understand what the assumptions are. Then we need appropriateness of the model for the phenomena at hand, because you're studying some phenomena. Is that model good enough to study that phenomena? So you have to try and see if that will work over there. Then we need to have some inference or framework assumptions. What kind of drishti am I going to apply? If I'm a communist, then I want to see everything in Bharatiya civilization as oppressor, oppressed. That is a framework that I have. If I'm a Bharatiya civilization person, we are people in search of the truth. So we go in a scientific way to try and see what is the evidence telling us. So it depends on we have to talk about that too. What is the framework you've used? Then we have to see, do the frameworks consider alternate hypothesis? For example, if you say this data is describing this only in this way, maybe there's a different explanation for the same data and outputs. So we should do the diligence in saying these are the alternative scenarios, and you rule them out saying this is not possible, this is not possible, this is what I want. Finally, are the conclusions logical outcomes of the methods? So this is what we need to do for critical thinking of the data, of the methods, and so on.